We're live. Anthony William, the medical medium. Did you catch the mold episode? Mold. You got to check it out. Looking forward to you guys checking this episode out. Mold, the crazy maker. It's the reason why I call it that, because it has really caused a lot of trouble with a lot of people, and it could make us go crazy in such an intense way. I've actually talked to a friend recently, had intense mold exposure, and it really triggered everything in this friend as far as fatigue and aches and pains and just, oh my God, the brain fog that my friend has dealt with it has just been off the charts. So I kind of think that the mold issues that we deal today should get more attention. It's like everybody kind of sweeps it under the carpet. Nobody really wants to know about it unless you're living with it. And then if you're living with it, nobody else really cares. There's really not a lot of help for people out there when you're dealing with mold exposure. People go through hell and back with mold exposure. So this was an important episode. Medical Medium Podcast at Apple Podcasts. Check it out there when you get a chance. Medical Medium Podcast at Apple Podcasts. The link is in the description. Mold, the crazy maker. Check out this podcast episode. Now, just giving you a forewarning about it. It's a docu-series style podcast. It's not a podcast where it's coffee talk and you just throw it away and then you get another guest on and throw it away, another guest on and throw it away, and you get a little tidbit if you can, or a little nugget wherever you can. This is filled with tons of information. It's packed with wall-to-wall with information about mold, about all the different things we go through. So check it out. It's a Medical Medium Podcast at Apple Podcasts. That's the official platform for the Medical Medium Podcast, where it's uncensored. The other platforms, they're censored in different ways. Michelle's there. Great. Good to see you. Everybody's coming on. You guys, the thing is about mold is it's devastating. It's not the same mold as yesterday. It's not. Cindy says, thanks for these podcasts. Thanks for listening to them. And Cindy Dunn says, hi, Anthony. The mold episode was spot on, and also the neurological one. So many things you hit spot on. Thank you. I now have supplements to follow. It's critical to know what supplements to use with neurological symptoms. Critical to know what supplements to use with mold exposure. These are important things that, and I talk to people all the time. I talked to a doctor last week about mold and everything, and he was telling me that his patients who get mold exposure, their symptoms get 10 times worse than they should normally be. And by the way, we're live right here. Just so you know, if you're on here, we're live streaming. We're live right now. And so I like doing these live, and I don't want to pre-record them and then put them up. I just want you guys to know that I'm here and there's good stuff to talk about, and I want to answer questions. I want to see how you guys are doing, what's happening in your life, what's happening in your life with mold, what's happening in your life with neurological symptoms. All these things are so important. Are you dealing with brain fog? I have a brain fog episode. So these episodes at Medical Medium Podcast at Apple Podcasts, these episodes are docu-series style, filled with information. They're not coffee talk where you throw it away and then another guest comes on, you toss it aside, and they just whatever. It's not like that. These are informative, powerful, packed information. Some of these episodes really gut-wrenching with information so much because there's so much truth. When you hear that much truth in some of these episodes, it's really intense, like the egg episode, the chemtrail episode, right? All of them. Christy Silva says, thank you so much for doing the modeling podcast. So many people with mold-ish illness needed this. Thank you for listening. Anyway, people with mold really do need help. They not only need help in the situation they're in, but they need help as far as support, because people don't get mold support out there. It's like the minute it hits, you become the unlucky one. You know what I mean, guys? It's like the minute the mold hits, you become the unlucky one. It's like, okay, that's your tough luck. So you're dealing with mold in your house or your apartment or your living space. It's your tough luck. Or, your building, that's your tough luck. It's like, and anybody else who's not going through it, they're like, oh, that's so sad. Really, mold? What does that mean? Is it really bad? And it's, a lot of people don't get support. I've had friends that have had mold problems devastate their lives and hit them really hard, you guys. And then they tell their other friends, and other friends like, really? What does that mean, mold? You mean like something got moldy And they're like, no, it's devastating. A pipe broke in the house, the basement, mold came up. There's mold all over the house. There's mold around the apartment. And they kind of don't get it. And they don't get what that means. So what does that mean? You got to move out? Does that mean you have to find a new place to live? Like, what does that mean? And so the support for mold all on its own. And that's not even getting sick. And then when you get sick, where you're like, yeah, mold made me sick, and then friends are like, well, did mold really make you sick? I've seen it where friends question friends. Even family members question family members, but friends question friends. I've seen that out there. I've seen doctors question patients and say, this isn't from mold. Mold didn't kind of cause this. This isn't probably a mold issue. So I've seen that over the years too. Now there's more doctors that actually believe in mold. That's good. But as I talk about in the episode, they still don't know why someone really gets triggered in a way they do by mold and what's going on deep inside of them, Wyla says, hi, Anthony, the mold podcast is great. Great. You take the fear out of mold. We can overcome it. You can. It's important to actually have the ability to be empowered and have that information. Messaging with Angels, good to see you. Catching up on the podcast. The Egg podcast is amazing. Oh my God. The Egg podcast is one of my favorites, Messaging with Angels. It's one of my favorites. And it's really intense. Really tons of truth in there. Tons of information in there. Check these out at Medical Medium Podcast at Apple Podcasts. If you haven't heard these, the mold one is what I'm talking about today. I might cover neurological symptoms in a little bit too. We're live right now if you guys just came on. Totally live. That's right. It's the way to do it. And so the mold today is not the same mold as yesterday. The mold in the years here aren't the same as yesteryear. Important to know. The reason why is we have thousands of super molds now, and they've gotten really strong because fungicides are everywhere. Fungicides are created by the chemical giants. They make fungicides to try to kill the mold. And when they do that, they make mold stronger and then make a new mold, and mold adapts. The minute you try to exterminate it with a fungicide, it just adapts and it gets stronger. And that's what happens. And I talk about how fungicide is sprayed on the highways. Every single highway, at least in the US and probably globally too, and I've heard it's in other places around the world, they spray the sides of every highway. It's sprayed with fungicides. Rest stops on highways are sprayed with fungicides. Inside the rest stops, it's just fungicides everywhere. And it's always like this. And new clothes, when you buy new clothes, brand new clothes, sprayed with fungicides. Got to wash them and everything. So, and people don't realize that they try on new clothes, all the fungicides in there. And you got the air fresheners, scented candles, those got fungicides in them. Colognes and perfumes have fungicides in them. I talk about it in the episode, you guys, about how you can have an old bottle of cologne that's 50 years old and there's no jellyfish in the middle of it. How come? There's a fungicide in it to stop from a fungus forming in your bottle of cologne. It's unbelievable, really. Louise says, what is the name of the podcast? Yeah, it's Medical Medium Podcast. So Medical Medium Podcast at Apple Podcasts. That's the platform. If you don't have an Apple device, go to medicalmedium.com. You'll see the menu, podcast in the menu. You can listen to it that way. It's a free podcast, but it's really informative, really power-packed. I'm just forewarning you, it's not a throwaway. These are docu-series style episodes. They're not coffee talk and people coming on and you just next and throw it away. Next, it's not cotton candy. It's actually informative. It's powerful. It's a tremendous amount of information in there to heal. There's healing tools in this podcast. So the mold one is the one up now. That's what's going on here. The link is in the description. So please know that the link is in the description. So you're going to want to check these out. Mold exposure is really serious. It can trigger off a lot of symptoms in people. It's a major trigger for illness, and that's what it does, Gina says, hi, Anthony, mold exposure symptoms sound similar to my Lyme disease symptoms. Yes, they do. Because Lyme disease symptoms are neurological, mold exposure can trigger any... just say you never had a diagnosis of Lyme disease. Say you never had a diagnosis of some disease or illness or symptoms. And what happens is when you get mold exposure, it can trigger something inside of you, and then you can end up with a Lyme disease diagnosis for a lot of people. That happens too. So it's not like they get Lyme symptoms, they get diagnosed with a Lyme, diagnoses and never see mold. There's people out there that get the mold first, it becomes the trigger, and then they have the Lyme symptoms. Then they have the neurological symptoms. Absolutely. So that's how it works. So Kelly says, I'm new to this. Where do I find the Apple Podcast? So Medical Medium Podcast at Apple Podcast. The link is in the description, Kelly. So check that out. The link is in the description, and you can find it that way. You won't be disappointed. The episodes are packed. I have 3 meditations so you can heal using the meditations. I have a brain meditation. I have a moon meditation. I have the free as a bird meditation. It's a free resource. No commercials, no infomercials, no advertisements. And it's just jam-packed with healing information, including all the tools to use and stuff like that. Trisha Marie says, fungicides. Good to see you, Trisha. Glad you're here. And it's a free resource. And there's healing tools in this podcast so people can heal. So you know that. Sydney says, how do I listen to the podcast? You don't have Apple, then if you don't have an Apple device, just go to medicalmedium.com and you'll see the menu and podcast in the menu, and you can listen to it that way right there. It's free. That's the whole point. I try to offer as much information as I possibly can so you have the ability to heal, move forward. That's what it's always been about. Mandy says your podcasts are incredible, and the meditations too. So the meditations too, you're doing those. Doing the brain meditation, the moon meditation, freeze the bird meditation, incredible. Yeah, it's about making sure you guys have that knowledge. So let's talk about mold for a little bit. It's important. I talk about how fungicides are dropped everywhere. They're even dropped out of helicopters. They're dropped all over the place. They're literally dropping fungicides on us like yearly. They did side of the highways, parking lots, schools. Yeah, schools. They coat playgrounds with fungicide in schools, and this is what they do. And it's to stop mold from growing. The chemical companies sell it to everybody as a package deal, and then you just spray it everywhere. So everybody's spraying it everywhere. That's how it works. All the institutions spraying it everywhere. This is how it's done. Hospitals, they spray it everywhere. Fungicides everywhere, and then it creates super molds over time. Molds that get a little crazy, that get out of control, and that's what we're up against out there. So information, very important information. But I want to talk about this. What mold does is mold lowers the immune system. That's what it does. Mold lowers the immune system. So that when it lowers the immune system, it triggers something inside of us, something that's already happening in there. And that's why you can have a family of 5, you can have a family of 7, you can have a family of 3, a family of 4, and only one person gets sick. One person gets sick. And that's it. So it's like, well, why is mom sick? Why is mom in bed suffering with fatigue, aches and pains, tingles and numbness, tics and spasms, or just body pain? And why is mom suffering like that from mold exposure and dad's not? Dad can eat the mold. It could be in the air. It could be living in it, all breathing in it. The kids are fine doing the same thing, and that's how it works. Kimmy says, greeting from Germany. Thank you in spirit so much. We are healing. Germany's amazing. So glad you're here. Saw Lorraine Ellis here too. Trish Marie's here. Everybody seems to be here today. It's great. Tanya says, are the podcasts related to the information in your books? Yeah, they are. They're related to information in the books. But what I always have done, I always like to put out more information and more and more and more, so that if you have the Medical Medium books like Cleanse to Heal, which is the most comprehensive medical textbook out there for healing, over 200 symptoms and conditions, if you're interested, get it free at the library, or Amazon's on sale right now, 51% off US. So what I like to do is offer as much information as I can in all the resources. So I put out this docuseries podcast for you guys, and keep in mind, like, this is something you'd have to pay for, and you don't have to. That's what's incredible. This is a high production, and really, really quality, high production. And it's a docuseries style podcast. So it's not like, well, am I just going to listen to Anthony shoot the crap? Is that what this is going to be? Let's just go to his podcast. Let's just hear him shoot the stuff, and and go off and talking. That's not what this is. This is packed with information, docuseries style. It's so you have this other resource to heal and move your life forward. That's what the Medical Meeting Podcast is about. And so every resource I put out, like the book, it's a resource packed with information, so you don't have missing pieces. So it's like you listen to the podcast, you got the book too. It's, look, and if you're not sick and you haven't struggled and you're not dealing with anything really like problematic like that, then, I get it. Maybe you don't need this stuff right now, but if you ever get really sick or know somebody that's really sick, they want the Cleanse to Heal book. I mean, they're going to need it. They're going to want the Medical Meeting Podcast. Alexandra, where did you find them? The link is in the description. That's where you find the Medical Meeting Podcast at Apple Podcasts. The link is in the description. And this week you can find it there. Medical Meeting Podcast at Apple Podcasts, So, Catherine Elizabeth, good to see you. Hi, Anthony. Thank you for this episode. Blown away super molds. Scary that mold loves EMF. Let's talk about that for a little bit. So, I can only scratch the surface, you guys, of what is in there. But let's talk about the EMF and all of that. So, molds, they jive on a frequency is what they do. They thrive on a frequency. That's what molds like to do. So, and there's a reason for this, because molds were tested in labs where there were tremendous amounts of frequency, electricity, EMF, radio signals, all of it. So mold has adapted to that. It loves cell towers. So mold loves cell towers. That doesn't mean throw away your devices, because that doesn't matter. Cell towers still sending signals, regardless if you have a device in your hand or not. It's still a signal that's going everywhere. And molds love these types of frequencies. They love it. They love EMF. They love radio frequencies. They love cell tower frequencies. They love it all. So with that, mold thrives on that. So when you break that frequency, you got a chance of actually breaking mold. And I talk about that in the episode. So important. Nina says, what's the book called? The book right there? The book is Cleanse to Heal, so Medical Medium Cleanse to Heal. It's 51% off at Amazon.com US. 200 symptoms and conditions. It's got 75 recipes in there. It's packed with information, supplement dosages, what to do for different symptoms and conditions. Get it free at the library if you don't want to get it at Amazon. So, and then the Medical Medium Podcast. So there you go, Medical Medium Podcast. The thing is with Medical Medium information is you always have the option of getting it for free. That's the whole point. It's like get the book at the library if you want. Hear the podcast for free. No commercials in the podcast. That's what it's about. So, I know we're live stream right now, so I just want to convey this information out to you guys. And just so you know, because someone might come on here and be like, what's he selling? What kind of stuff is Anthony Williams selling? And it's like, well, not selling anything. I want you guys to have free information, be able to heal the whole bit. So, talk about neurological symptoms a little bit. So, aches and pains, tingles and numbness, anxiety, depression, those are all neurological. Tics and spasms, that's neurological. Okay, so, migraines, headaches, that's neurological. Brain fog, focus and concentration issues, that's neurological. So I'm talking about all these different neurological symptoms that people have. Burning skin, jaw pain, burning gums, burning tongue, tremoring, shaking, vibrating, ear popping, ringing in the ears, right? Eye floaters, all of that neurological symptoms. You guys should check out the neurological episode at Medical Meeting Podcast at Apple Podcasts. Check out the neurological episode. It's packed with information, so important. And Ashley's doing the moon meditations. That's awesome there. So we're live right now. Just everybody know that. That's what's happening here. I'm talking about mold, the crazy maker. Talking about neurological symptoms too. Check out that episode. But anyway, you guys, check them out if you can. So much healing information in there. So much to learn. So much to know. I got your back. I love you guys. And just keep the hard work, all the hard work you're doing healing. Do your celery juice. Do all the things you need to do to heal. Keep on learning about the information. Just know that I care, and I'll just keep on doing this. I'll keep on putting out these powerful episodes. Subscribe if you can. Please subscribe to the Medical Meeting Podcast at Apple Podcasts so you can be the first to get the notification so you don't miss out on when the next episode comes out. You know why? Because there's no definitive time. It's not on a schedule. It could come any day, any hour, so make sure you subscribe. And then share the episodes with other people. Please share the episodes. Link is in the description. I love you guys. Okay, take care.